G'day Neil, how you going?
Good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, pretty good, mate. I sent a text the other day. I don't know whether you got it. You thought it might have been gone out bush or something, but
Yeah, I did get it. I've just been busy, mate. I have been out bush.
yeah, no, that's okay. It's okay. I spoke to Mum and she told me everything that she'd seen and some other interesting news she said no, I don't want to go on that. You know, she's old and frail and that. And
Yeah, I
said,
get
"Look,
it.
Mum, I'm happy to talk to the guy and if he wants, and I'll just pass on what you've told me." And she said, "Yeah, that's okay." So, yeah, so I don't know whether you're that interested in something that happened. What is it now, 30 odd years ago? But
Always interested, mate. That the more the history there is, the more I guess it justifies the sightings now as well. You know.
yeah, okay. Then I'll quickly go over it again. And what she told me was there was some other stuff too. So. Yeah, she knocked off this particular night, and it was about 8:30, she said, and we had a little farm just out of town, and we had a shop in town. So she knocked off at the shop, and she was driving back out to the farm to go home, and it was dark, and she said she come around the corner on there's a main bitumen road, and then you turn off a little side road and go down to our place on the bitumen there. And it's in an area where there's like little 5 and 10 acre farms on the edge of town, and there's quite a big block of bush on the other side, on the top side of the road.
Okay.
So, come in the corner, and she said this thing ran straight. When she says went straight across the road in front of her, about 30 metres in front, coming out of our friend's neighbouring property where there was a dam and that, and heading back up towards the bush. And she said, it was a weird looking thing, she said, and she got back home and told my dad, and anyway, she didn't say nothing. And then the next night, just about the same time, this thing appeared again, ran across the road. Anyway, back up and onto the main road and sort of headed off towards the bush, I suppose, she said.
Yep.
And she said to me that it was a funny, weird looking thing. It was a tanny colour. It wasn't a dog. It had a big tail, like a kangaroo's tail. It had that big at the base,
Yep.
She knows what she's seen. And it was sort of coming down at the back, you know what I mean? And she said it. She's explaining to me. And I said, "What colour was it, Mum?" And she said it was a tanny colour, but had dark on it as well. But I didn't see stripes, just it was dark as well,
Yep.
And she said it had a big, weird sort of looking head on it, not like a dog, and it sort of had this funny gait as it went across the road, not like a dog or anything. It was sort of like lower in the back, she said, the way it got along and went across the road.
Right.
Both times. Anyway, so the plot thickens. A couple of days later, she's at the shop one morning. She's listening to Talkback Radio, the local radio station, and this lady's got on there and said, "I think I seen a Tasmanian tiger or thylacine 3 kilometres out of Donnybrook the other night." And she explained to the DJ, whoever he was, that where it was 3 kilometres out of Donnybrook, and Mum's listened to this. She said, "That's where we are, and that's what I seen." Anyway, so one of my mum's friends, who's likes all this sort of thing, brought a photo into the shop and said to him, "Neril, hey, have a look at this photo." And she says, "This is what she said," and Mum straight away said, "That's what I seen." She had a photo of a Tasmanian tiger.
Like just one of the old historical photos.
Yeah, it must have been just something she'd got out of a book or something,
Yep.
And straight away my mum said, "That's what I seen, one of them." And at that time my mum would have been 45,
Yep.
45-ish. And, so she wasn't old and bad of mind or sight or anything.
Sure.
And she's a country lady. Her dad was a roo shooter. She's been around all that farms and stuff, and she's not airy fairy what she sees and says,
Yeah, she's a soul of the earth lady.
Yeah, she knows what she's seen.
Yeah.
And and there's another old fella. She was telling me the story in Donnybrook, an old bushman. I don't know where the old guy lives. He could be dead now. And she said he's seen one too, just out of Donnybrook on the other side of town years ago. He was sitting in the bush there, as he was, bushmen do, and this thing come along. He's seen one. He's seen it. They're all right. It was there back in the 80s. And, so that's the story. I mean, it's just another sighting. And...
yeah, but it just adds to the diversity of the areas as well, and the map with the pins on it just gets bigger and bigger all the time, yeah?
Yeah, and, I'm in an area, and I've just come back from there right now, down the mouth of the Donnelly River in the back of Nannup there. I'm about 50 k's. And if anyone's ever going to see one, it's down in that country down there on the coast where it's just thick. You can only get in there by boat down to my shack down the river 12 kilometres where it comes out in the ocean. And that's where I've seen the big footprints the other day.
Okay.
Whether it was a dog, a wild dog or not, I don't know. But I've seen foxes on the beach down there, but I've never seen big prints like this,
Yeah.
Anyway, so my belief is that if there's going to be any around, that's where they're going to be in the back of Nannup, down on that coast there, So I'll keep my eye out for you.
Yeah, no worries. They're still up around Nannup. There's sightings around Nannup regularly.
Okay. Yeah, I go through Nannup every week, from Bustleton down that highway, down past through all that country there at different times of the day to go to my cottage,
Yeah.
And I'm surprised I haven't seen something. I see pigs, I see plenty of roos and emus and all that, but never seen one of these things yet. Is
there much talk about dingoes or wild dogs in the area?
There has been a talk of a wild dog down there. There's pigs down there. Whether it's a pig hunter's dog got lost and gone wild, I don't know. But a fella reckons he's seen a wild dog down there, but don't know about dingoes. I don't know. So,
yeah.
But we're in that vicinity, but it's pretty rugged country,
Yeah, and that's perfect habitat for them. No one's going to bother them in there.
There's limestone cliffs on the coast and all that, so plenty of places for them to live. So, where just for interest's sake, while I'm talking in there, where do you think is the most likely place that one is going to be absolutely seen and videoed or photographed that won't be a myth anymore?
Oh, honestly, mate, it could be anywhere. It really could be on the mainland. It could be in Tassie. Look, it's not that people aren't looking. It's not that people don't have the technology. Some guys actually sent me a video the other day from their dash cam of an animal that they thought looked a bit weird, and it might have been a thylacine crossing the road. Now, it was only about 50 metres in front of their car, but it was so difficult to actually say definitively what it was, and it was clear footage, but people think that dash cams are going to prove it. They may prove it, but they're only going to prove it if the thing's within 10 metres of the car.
Yeah, you need clear footage, don't you?
Yeah, if it's any more than 20 or 30 metres away from the car, you're really struggling to see what it is. It's a four-legged thing crossing the road. I had a good look at the footage, and it looked like it had black feet, and it had very smooth locomotion and sort of pricked up ears, so I think it was a fox.
Yeah.
And one of the things that everybody mentions when they see a thylacine is the unusual gait.
Yeah.
They walk awkward, they run like they're injured, it runs like it's drunk, it was running really peculiar, it had a strange loping gait. I hear this with virtually every single witness.
Yeah, this is what my mum said. It was that it had a funny way of getting along, And
that's a real key thing for these independent people to say.
The other thing she did say to me, I just thought of them, was she said it had hair. It had hair. It didn't have fur like a fox. It had short hair.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
It definitely wasn't a fox. She knows that, but it had hair. She said it had hair. It wasn't like a fox has fur. Dogs have hair.
Yeah, I know what you mean. The fox has a much longer coat.
Yeah, and she said no. This was short hair, and it was quite muscly. She said.
Yep.
So it all points to that, doesn't it?
It does. And look, they can hop like a kangaroo as well. And there's quite a few sightings. In fact, we interviewed a couple in South Australia only a couple of weeks ago, and they were saying how it was running across the road, and then because they were heading towards it, it needed to get out of the way, so it hopped like a kangaroo. It took 3 bounds like a kangaroo.
Can't make up its mind what it is, can it?
Well, it was running, and then all of a sudden it decided it would hop just to get out the way a bit quicker, you know? Now, foxes don't hop.
No. I've shot a few foxes and I've seen them up close, and I have an avocado farm. Recently, and because they eat the avocados, and I had a lot of chooks there as well, and I've seen plenty of foxes. I know what a fox looks like.
Yeah. Didn't you mention the other day that the neighbours to your mum's had heard it or something as well?
Yeah. So she said to me where this was. It was just 100 metres up the road from Lance and Norman's place, and we're about another kilometre down the road, I suppose. And anyway, she got talking to Lance and Norman a bit after that. Must have been that next week or whatever. And she said to me that Lance and me the other night, we sat on the side of the bed and we could hear this noise up in the bush, like a woman was being belted or something. This horrible screeching. We sat on the bed. She said we weren't going, because a couple, they weren't going outside.
Sure.
They wondered what was going on. Never ever. And there's no dogs in that area at the time. She said. Yeah. Because they talked about this, but they could hear this weird, like really screeching noise, like somebody's being bashed.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't know whether they make what noise they make or not, but
I've got probably a dozen or so statements from people where they have described a noise similar to that, but they sometimes say it sounded like a woman who'd lost their baby.
Okay.
Like they were wailing and screaming because their baby had died. That's what it sounded like.
Yeah, so it all sort of some people might explain things a little bit differently.
Sure.
But it sounds like definitely there was one in that area at that time.
Yeah, and look, there'd be some more in that area. The way they're going to behave at different times of the year is, anybody's guess, really. What do you know what time of the year it was when Mum had that sighting?
She said it was warm. It was summertime, she reckoned. It wasn't winter, it was warm. It was the summertime, she reckoned. She couldn't pinpoint a date, but she said it wasn't winter time.
Sure.
It wasn't rain, it was warm, it was summer night.
Okay.
So,
now, your shack in relation to where your farm used to be when you were growing up, how far would that be as a crow flies?
It's about 140k.
Okay, so it's a fair further way down the river to where you've got your shack.
From Donnybrook, what we just talked about, to the boat ramp, it's about 1.5 hours drive through, and I've got to go through Nannup to get there.
Okay, yep.
And then I've got a 12-kilometre trip down the river to where it comes out of the ocean to the cottage. So it's about 1.5 hours by car, 20 minutes in the boat down the river. Excellent.
Sounds like a very isolated place.
There's 43 cottages there, and I've spent a lot of time in the last couple of years renovating it, and man, it's been a mission, I can tell you, but it's worth it. It's a sensational place now, and just the environment,
Yep.
And untouched down there, like as far as the wildlife, and because we're in a national park, and there's no tracks in there, no roads, just a boat. And so, as I say, if there's you don't even go walking in the bush, it's too thick,
Yeah. One way to rule out dingoes when it comes to prints, I mean, there are some dogs that have large feet, but they're going to be a very, very, very big dog, and you wouldn't mistake it. But dingoes' feet don't really get that big. I've had some dingo casts before from alpine dingoes, and these thylacine front paw prints, if it's an adult male, they get about 100 millimetres wide.
Yeah, right.
They often display the 5th digit, but not always. It depends on their speed and the density of the substrate that they're running on at the time. Mm-hmm. The back feet look very dog-like, but the front feet don't have any webbing between the toes, so they splay their toes outwards, just like fingers. When you spread your fingers, they spread out like that. If you do see any other prints, by all means, get a photo, and if you think of it, throw a bag of plaster in the boat next time.
I mean, do these things come out in the daytime? Or
Absolutely. Yeah, they do. They're meant to be crepuscular, which is dawn and dusk, but there's a lot of sightings of them at 11, 1, 3, you know, they'll... It's anybody's guess. Yeah, that's it. They just do what they want when they want. And 9 out of 10 times, someone sees them, but they don't even look at the person who's looking at them. They just got their nose on a scent or whatever they're doing, and they don't even... They're not even phased by people 90% of the time.
Yeah. From what I gather, this thing just went across the road in front of Mum and didn't seem to... You know when you see a dog on the side of the road?
Yeah.
A dog doesn't come out of a paddock and run across the road and go on the other side and keep going. A dog will either be running along a road or it'll be stopped and it'll stop and look at you. You know what I mean? It behaves differently, doesn't it? You know what I mean?
As do foxes.
Yeah, of course. A fox is, they won't, any wild animal will just keep going. They won't, a domesticated dog or something will just be running along the road, going somewhere, or it'll stop on the side of the road.
Yeah.
You know, and look at you. And, but this thing didn't, it just kept going across, you said.
Yep. Yeah. A fox generally takes a bolt for about 100, 200 metres, then they stop, have a quick look back at you, and then they go
That's
again.
It. Yeah, then they're gone. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and they feed differently too. The other thing with these things, which we're having a hard time getting the RSPCA to believe, because they want to blame hunters and Satanists for this happening every time, but they bite the heads off of kangaroos and eat their lungs.
Yeah, right.
They feed very particularly. They're very particular in the way they feed and what they take and leave behind.
Yeah, so they'll take the parts they want, and if they still want anything, they'll take a bit of meat, I suppose, as well. But...
They do sometimes eat a little bit of meat, but not a lot. They generally just they crush. As far as I can tell, they do a crushing bite on the back of the neck and take the animal out. Then they bite into the throat. They drink all the blood. Then they take the head off. Then they take the lungs and eat them. And they leave the rest behind. Now, there's not too many animals will leave the rest behind.
No.
Because there's all that fresh meat and all those other bits and pieces. Foxes nearly always go in through the belly because it's quick and easy, and they're opportunistic.
You do this full time, Neil, do you?
Well, sort of, yeah. I don't have a full-time job or anything. Sort of...
And can't the government give any funding to help?
They don't want to help, mate. They don't want to admit this thing's there because then it means they have to do something about it, yeah? They don't want to help. There's no government help for this unless you're a PhD professor working for a university and you pretend you're looking for eagles or something. Then you might get some funding while you're looking for tigers. At the moment, there's about 1,100 cameras in Tassie that one of the professors has put out, and he's allegedly looking for devils, but everybody knows he's looking for tigers, yeah? No, actually, I think it's feral cats. They're doing a feral cat count, but they're really looking for thylacines, yeah?
Yeah, okay. So, well, he might get lucky, you know. It's a lot of cameras.
Well, that's not my 1,100. I've only got about 80, but that's enough for one man to manage, let me tell you. It's keeping me busy.
Yeah, are these trail cameras, are they expensive things to buy?
It depends. You can get a reasonable one from Bunnings for about $150.
Okay.
You can buy them online from lots of different places. Hunting stores sell them. Yep. There's lots of different brands. We actually was importing some directly from China ourselves, but the quality started to deteriorate after we bought a few, and then we stopped buying them in, and we managed to get some good American Chinese ones, military ones, brand name ones, and they're pretty good.
Yeah, okay. And over here in Nannup, have you got people there that are in touch with you that let you know when there's a sighting?
Yeah, I have. I've got quite a few. I haven't got any cameras out there. Yeah. But Wendy Slee, you know about Sid Slee and Wendy Slee in Nannup, Bustleton.
I think I've seen a video on it. Was it?
Yeah, there's a video on my YouTube channel. And Wendy's in our documentary on our YouTube channel as well, but she doesn't talk on camera. She just overdubs her voice. She didn't want to talk on camera. Yeah. But there's a bit of footage of me and her walking around the bush near their farm and stuff. And Sid did a book about it in the 1980's. I think he brought his book out, and you know, he was onto it. But again, the government, he'd send in evidence and they'd lose it. You know, he'd send in scat samples and hair samples and print casts, and It all disappear into the ether. So
Yeah. So you're still getting the odd sighting over in Nannup area?
oh yeah, it's not odd. Every year there's people seeing stuff out there without a doubt. We got some audio recordings about 18 months ago from a lady that lived near Nannup, and I tell you what, I can't say it was absolutely thylacine, but she was adamant that it was. But it was the most bizarre sounding animal. It sounded like a bird, but it wasn't.
Yeah.
But I think that was a female calling her joeys, like calling her cubs. So
Yeah, okay.
but
we've got about
half a dozen different audio recordings that we think are thylacine now.
Yeah, which side of Nannup are the?
I'm not sure. You know? I'm not sure, mate. I'm not sure. I'd have to have a look at the maps and stuff. But it basically all around the joint. And there's a river not too far from Nannup that they're seen along there too.
Yeah, Blackwood River.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I did listen to that guy that seen one when he pulled over. He worked at the zoo. And,
yep.
And he pulled
that
over.
Old fella. Yeah, he was great to talk to.
That guy seen one right in front of him and his old man.
Yeah. That was classic. That was a really good sighting. You know, clear as a bell, broad daylight. Like.
Yeah. The thing that takes my interest is, you know, I'm not a skeptic. I believe that could be still there, you know.
Sure.
And for the different demographics of people that are seeing them, there's doctors, there's tradies, there's farmers, there's
police
nurses,
officers,
whatever. You know, they're all different people seeing these things. And
that's right.
then, and then I say to myself, well, the amount of people that are out there, surely, how come? So nobody's got definitive proof yet that there's not one, that they've got one, you know.
I think there's been many examples of definitive proof that either people panic because they realise what they've shot and then they bury it and don't want to get in trouble. And then there's also these stories we hear about universities being giving dead ones that also disappear into the ether too. So it just adds, you know, I'm not saying it's a big conspiracy theory or anything like that, but you hear a lot of rumours, and I've heard dozens and dozens of them over the years. You know, I've collected a lot of information, and I think it's pretty safe to say the government know that they're there and they're living in denial because they don't want to deal with it. It's that simple.
You think they'd want to, wouldn't you?
You think they would, but then that means that the scientific community from all around the world is going to come down on them like a ton of bricks and say you must do this and you must do that. And let's face it,
say for someone like me at the Donnelly River, and that's where they'll be. If I was to get that photo, that proves it, the place would never be the same. People would come for miles and miles. You know?
Yeah, you obviously, if you do get that definitive photo or whatever, you've got to keep that location, you know, pretty hush-hush.
If it might not be me, but if I know of somebody that gets that photo or sees it, what's the best way to, like...
Well, don't go to the government.
Don't go to the media.
Well, you could go to the media, but certainly do not go to DEW over there because they will smother it up real quick.
Who's that, sorry?
DEW, Department of Environment and Wildlife over there.
Okay.
Or Water, Department of Environment and Water, I think they are.
Yeah.
They handle it all over there, and, you know, they're very good at losing evidence.
Okay.
So I either come to me or go to the media or whatever, but I wouldn't go to the government. If I found a dead one, I'd invite the media to the front door of the museum, then I'd give it to them. But, they're just notoriously bent, I'm afraid. They're just bent, and they don't like dealing with the truth. You know, it's just a sad reality. Our governments are corrupt.
That's another story.
Yeah, it is. But, you know, the departments thereof all fit in with the same mould, I believe.
Yeah. Mate. So, thanks, Neil, for your time, mate, and I'll keep my eyes peeled out there for you.
Mate, if you get a print and you want to take some photos, flick them through, but please put something next to them for a scale.
Okay, cool.
All right? Doesn't matter if it's a 50-cent piece, whatever.
Yeah, I do a bit of beach combing and that, and in these winter months, and if I see it again, I'll definitely take photos.
No worries, mate.
You know, you wouldn't believe it. I had my phone with me, and I thought, I'll take a picture of that and send to my son, because he's pretty interested in all this sort of stuff too, and he helps me down there.
Yep.
I said, fuck it. No, he didn't want it.
Have you had a look at our website?
Yeah. So I'll definitely be taking photos in the future. So
There's a lot of photos of prints on our website on the evidence page.
Okay, cool.
Have a look. You'll probably see the similarities pretty quick.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't know if you got a map of Australia there, mate, but Donnybrook, 3 kilometres from Donnybrook, my mum seen one in 1985, 86, somewhere around about then. And if you want to put a pin in that little hole there, you can.
Yep, no problems. Excellent.
Cool.
Good on you, Mike. Thanks for your time, mate.
Good luck out there, eh?
Cheers, buddy. Bye-bye.
Bye, mate.